Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Gamecast Radio Sports Talk. I am Tim Kernan, alongside Mike Freshwater. Mike, haven't had you in the studio, although we are not at the official Gamecast Radio Sport Talk studio. We are live today from the My Favorite Muffin.
How about that?
A big thank you to Ted and Carrie Thompson for hosting us today. Mike, it was just too cold to do it in the Gamecast Radio Sports Talk studio.
Sports Talk Radio studio would have been a little chilly today, but hopefully it's a short-term problem.
Yeah, My Favorite Muffin, of course, is located in the Cross Point Shopping Center at the corner of Alex Bell and Route 48. So, again, a big thank you to Ted and Carrie Thompson for hosting us today. But, Mike, you've been traveling. You haven't been on the show, at least physically, with me the last couple of times. We took last week off for some personal reasons, and, of course, we took off the week of the new year. So good to be back with you here today on the show.
It's good to be back. I don't like the weather, but it's good to be back.
Absolutely. And Mike, of course, you traveled. You and I, as we've mentioned a couple times, we cover Alter High School. You and I broadcast their football and basketball games. You are also a coach for Alter, and you travel with the team down to South Carolina. Maybe give us a little update on that. And they got a big weekend. You and I called the game last night down at Hamilton-Baden. The Alter Knights, of course, took care of business last night, but a very busy weekend for them.
It was a very, very busy week. We talked a little bit about the wrapping up the tournament down in South Carolina. The Knights lost in the finals by 1 to a team from Tennessee. Our only loss of the season. We've yet to lose to a team from Ohio, Tim, but they came back and played. Finally, got to play Beaver Creek this past Tuesday and won in an epic, titanic struggle at Alter against one of the better D1 teams in the not just in the area but in the state, maybe when it's all said and done. They went down to Baden last night and played a team that's trying to kind of rebuild a little bit. They got a new coach, a new young coach, in C.J. Fleming. His dad was a legend at LaSalle. C.J. played for his dad at LaSalle, and his brother, Ryan, is coaching at St. X. They actually played each other a couple weeks ago. I bet that was interesting. But went down there and got a big lead early, 20-0, as you know, 38-14 at halftime, and then they came out and, for lack of a better way to describe it, tried to make it a football game. And
they did.
Got
a little chippy, Mike.
Got
a little chippy.
They scratched and clawed, got back into the game. I think got it down to 10 or 11, maybe 12. But the Knights answered and held on and won by 14. And then, so tonight we play a really good team, a top 20, top 30 team in the country, the number 7 team overall out of Florida, Westminster Academy out of Fort Lauderdale. They've got 3 legit major Power 5 D1 college scholarship prospects, 1 5-star, 2 4-stars, and a 3-star. And they're going to be a handful, and that's at Flying to the Hoop tonight at 8:15, Westminster Academy. It's going to be interesting to see how we hang with those guys. And then tomorrow we go over to Ohio Dominican in Columbus to play in something called the 614 Challenge.
Yep.
We're one of just a few Dayton teams that have been invited to come over there and play, as you know. And so we're taking on the Westerville North at 5 o'clock tomorrow over to Ohio Dominican. Another really good top 10 maybe in the state D1 team. And so quite the gauntlet this week, 4 games in 6 days, but 2-0 so far, and we'll see how we how we deal with tonight and tomorrow. It's going to be interesting but fun.
Yeah, you and I won't be calling the game today at the Flying to the Hoop, but we will be calling the game tomorrow afternoon up at the Ohio Dominican in the 614. But I also want to, the Flying to the Hoop, it's pretty much a premier tournament put on here in Dayton. It's been around for quite a while now.
Has been.
And pretty impressive, the longevity of that tournament.
Yeah,
Mr. Horseman doing
Eric
a pretty
Horseman started it, I'm going to go with like 30 years ago. It's been a really long time. And he was holding it up at Vandalia,
yes,
the high school gym
that.
up there, and was struggling. And then along came Trent Arena, and the rest is history. People ask all the time, why can't he play at UD or at the Nutter Center? And it's just the stupidest rule you've ever heard of. we as Alter could go down and rent UD Arena or rent the Nutter Center like we used to do and hold triple headers and double headers there without any problem. But because Flying to the Hoop is a private
It's
event,
an organization,
it's some kind of a recruiting violation or issue, and so he has to do it someplace like the Toronto Public Facility. But it's perfect for that, really. The location, the size, the venue is really kind of perfect for something like Flying to the Hoop. And you mentioned it's supposedly the second best, if you will, highest profile high school showcase event in the country. Unfortunately, or maybe not so much, but the other one that's number one is going on up at Springfield, Massachusetts this weekend as part of the NBA Hall of Fame weekend. And so some teams are going.
Some are going to that, yeah.
But some play here and then go there. So both that event and obviously Flying to the Hoop are in the same weekend. It's a 3-day weekend with Martin Luther King a day on Monday. So there's games Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and 4-day event. And it's great. It's a great event. High profile teams. Some prep schools, mostly federated high school teams, but the best that the country has to offer.
Well, and maybe sometime we could get Eric on. I think it'd be fun to talk to him. And as you mentioned, I don't know the exact number of years, but that has been around for a long time. He's done a fantastic job and doesn't seem to be slowing down, Mike. He's getting some very good teams to come in. I know Alter likes to participate in it every year if they can. They're not always invited, unfortunately,
right.
But they are this year. So we'll certainly get your feedback next week on how they perform in that one.
Yep.
But Mike, want to jump right into, we talked again a couple of weeks ago. I mentioned that in the opening, but we had a show prior to the semifinals.
We did.
And we did make some picks in that one. But, Michigan, of course, went up against Alabama, and Washington went up against Texas. Michigan and Washington won those games. And then they faced off this past Monday, I believe. And Michigan, of course, took the national championship 34-13. Want to talk about that a little bit? I thought Michigan was pretty dominant in that one from the opening gun, but they looked very good, and Washington kind of looked lost in that first half, I thought.
I was convinced after about when we got to 14-0, when Michigan scored on those two long runs, it felt like they were in control, and it felt like they never really lost control of that game, that they were the better team. They were bigger, faster.
Their defense was pretty impressive.
Yeah, Washington's defense statistically all year was not one of the best. In fact, they were pretty low ranked statistically, and they had problems stopping Michigan from running the ball like we all thought would be the case. And so the Big Ten, Michigan dominated in that game and won the national championship. As much as I hate to admit it, there's an asterisk next to that.
Next
who
to
knows
that, what's going to happen?
We'll see what happens, but it was domination, and Michigan won that one easily. And I think they were the favorite, and they played like it.
Well, and Mike, personally, I'm a big believer that you have to prove it on the field. Meaning, if you lose a game, or if you lose a couple of games, if you lose a game at an inopportune time, that has to have an effect on where you fall as far as making the playoffs. And unfortunately, that's what happened to Georgia. But I also think Georgia was one of the best teams. And I think that the fact that they're going to a larger playoff, I think is going to kind of eliminate those issues. You're going to get the best teams in. Of course, you're going to have the arguments, 13, 14, 50 are going to be like, we should be in there. But in terms of like this year, you would have had Georgia in there.
Absolutely.
And
you would have had Florida State and you would have had Ohio State, and there wouldn't have been any controversy. So
I think you're going to get a better national championship game.
Well, you're going to get a great tournament. You're going to get more games out of it, that's for sure. More meaningful bowl games, which we all want. But everybody talks about Florida State and getting screwed and their lawsuit and all that stuff. But not a lot of people are talking about Georgia. I mean, Georgia really number 1 or 2 all season, and they lose one game, the last game of the season, regular season, and
it was close.
In a close game, right? And they're left out, and they had every right to complain. And then look what they did in their bowl game. They went out and I'm trying to remember who they
No,
played.
they just hammered.
They rolled somebody, and was it Florida State? It was Florida State.
It was Florida State.
Rolled Florida State. Now, having said all of that,
Yeah, you have the opt-outs.
you had all
and
the
that.
opt-outs and all that crap, but
They made a statement.
Georgia didn't opt out.
No, they absolutely made a statement.
And I like Kirby Smart. You know, I don't know if offended is the right term, but I'm not offended by him. I don't like. There's nothing about him I don't like, and he wins with class. He's he's a great coach. Obviously, he can recruit. He's proven it. I think there was something about maybe the committee didn't want somebody to come in there and win the third one in a row. You know, I don't know, but
Yeah, that may have had something to do with
I
it.
like Kirby Smart. I think he's a great coach, and he's staying put in Georgia, and he is going to have them back again next year in that top 12, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I pulled it up. Final in that game was
Yeah.
63-3 Georgia,
Yeah,
and they,
yeah.
you know, I
love it.
didn't follow that one as closely. I did watch it a little bit, but I don't know, you know, in regards to the opt-outs, how many Georgia had, but they actually put on a show on that
They didn't
one.
have very many, but they proved that. I mean, I just loved everything about how they handled that, and
Yeah.
Kirby Smart deserves a lot of credit for it.
Mike, we have also had some huge coaching changes at the college and pro football level, and we might as well start right at the top. Nick Saban decides to retire, and, you know, I'm sure coming out in the next few weeks, months, next year, you're probably going to get a lot of interviews that Nick Saban will do, and maybe he'll reflect and kind of discuss on the reasons why he decided to retire when he did. But, you know, I have my own assumptions. But personally, I think, one, he may just be done. He may just feel like, you know what, it's time for me to go. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to wake up. I don't want to recruit. But I also have, and this, again, this is my assumption. I'm kind of interested to see what you kind of feel about it. But I feel like Nick Saban is an old school type of coach. The NIL, I think, is really not his cup of tea. And I don't think he feels like the portal is a good thing for college football. And I think he also feels like with the portal, it is so easy for a team, not easy, but it is easier for a team to get right back to an elite level almost immediately without having to build, without having to recruit, and without having to without having to create a team, which is the way he did it.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're thinking.
I think there's a lot. I think that has to be a lot to it. The one thing I heard him say when he was talking with Reese Davis this week was the people at Alabama, the administration, they kept asking for a 3, 4, 5 year kind of a commitment from him instead of letting him just go from 1 year to the next. And he just said he couldn't put himself in a position to do that, to commit to anything longer than just 1 year. And then I think you're right. I think all the other extraneous things that are happening around college football today made it just a little bit too much to handle for a 72-year-old guy who's pretty much used to doing it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
So he said there's never a good time for something like that, but there is a right time, and this is his right time. And I'll be interested in see what he does downstream. There's rumors that he's going to go to the NFL and keep coaching. I don't believe that. I think he's done, and I think he'll find other avenues to kind of quench his competitiveness, his competitive attitude and the way he likes to do things. So
Certainly he could go into the booth. You know they're going to be after him to do that.
definitely a possibility.
Yeah.
He would be good at that, even if it's just in the studio. He's got obviously tremendous experience and tons of insight. And Ohio ties, by the way. He went and played at Kent State. Was a defensive back there, coached at Ohio State, coached with the Cleveland Browns. He's got Ohio roots, but he's an interesting guy. He's probably going to write a book.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and all of that
I'll be
stuff.
reading it.
I ultimately wasn't a big fan just because they won so much, kind of like Bill Belichick, which we'll talk about. But ultimately, I just said, hey, you got to beat the guy. I mean, if you don't like him, And it
That's right.
didn't seem like there was any. I mean, they had very few issues down there in terms of off the field things. It's either that or they kept it did a good job of keeping it really quiet. But he did do it right, and like you said, and built a dynasty down there. And I don't think it's even arguable. He is the best college football coach of all time.
Yeah, without a doubt. He leaves Alabama. He was there from 2007 to 2023. He has a 292, 72, and 1 overall record. That's not just at Alabama, but
Right.
he won 7 national championships, 1 with LSU, 6 with Alabama.
Right.
So just absolutely impressive resume for Nick Saban. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where he goes from here, whether he fully retires or enters the booth as a color man for college football. But
Think about that, 7 national championships. To beat that, you'd have to win 8, right?
you know,
Who's
I'm not
gonna
one
do
to
that?
ever say never say
Well,
never. But
not in my lifetime. That's not
But
gonna happen.
man, that is going to be hard to
and
beat.
oh, by the way, it's
Especially with the way it is
gonna be,
now.
correct. I was just going to say that it's going to be a lot harder now, but to beat that, you've got to do it 8 times, and I just don't see that happening anytime soon.
No. Mike, there were 7 candidates rumored to take over for Saban. Kalen DeBoer from Washington, Dabo Sweeney, Mike Vrabel, who was fired by the Titans, Tommy Rees, who is the offensive coordinator right now at Alabama, Mike Loxley from Maryland, Dan Quinn, the Dallas defensive coordinator, and of course, it is being reported that they have hired Kalen DeBoer from Washington,
Yep.
who's done a very impressive job there, kind of brought Washington up from the ashes, honestly. They were absolutely reeling and terrible until he got there. But, yeah, before we talk a little bit about Kalen DeBoer taking over as the Alabama coach, I was going to say, Kirby Smart was never really mentioned.
Yeah,
I don't know if they reached out to him or not, but do you think he would have been interested in going back to Alabama?
You would think, although he's built Georgia into a pretty significant
sure has.
powerhouse, and if
Absolutely.
he's getting paid well to be there, then I'm sure that he's happy. And I don't know what his contract situation is. We'd have to look it up, but he might have like a significant buyout clause that would have made it more expensive for Alabama. But yeah, it wasn't strictly a rumor, not something. But what's amazing about how they handled it, and I really respect this. And then they had a little bit of a heads up that he was going to be leaving.
Yeah.
Probably, weeks, if not longer than that. He might have clued them in before the season even started, for all we know. But they had a short list, and they went out and hired their guy in a matter of 72 hours, which is great, is amazing to me. The Patriots did the same thing. They had a succession plan in place, and they replaced Belichick with a guy on his staff immediately. And so I love how organizations or programs are able to have that succession plan and are able to replace and put somebody in there to take over immediately, because it can be detrimental. A couple of Alabama kids jumped onto the portal bandwagon as soon as Saban announced that he was leaving, but they kind of locked that down pretty quickly by bringing DeBoer in.
Yeah.
And I'm sure one of the first things that DeBoer did before anything was contact any kids that they thought might be thinking about leaving, and making sure that they stayed within reason. So nice job on their part to get their guy that quickly. I'm going to be really interested in seeing how that all plays out, because first of all, people are going to expect results like what Nick Saban had, and that is not going to happen.
Well,
And this guy's not from that area. He is a West Coast guy, and I don't know if he spent any time east of the Mississippi. So we'll see how all that plays out. But give Alabama and their administration credit for locking in on who they wanted and getting him on board almost immediately after Saban resigned.
yeah, what I was going to say is one thing that is very evident, and I go all the way back when they hired Saban, he was like, I'm not going anywhere. I think he was at the Dolphins at the time. But I think what is evident is Alabama absolutely gets who they want, and they will make sure that they get who they want, because DeBoer had just signed an extension. I know that doesn't always mean anything, but there was a huge buyout. I believe it was a $12 million buyout.
Either he had a buyout or he had a clause that said, I'm not going to leave other than for
such and
these
such,
2 or 3 job's, and then the buyout's not effective at when that happens. But he's got a tremendous record. He is an offensive coach. Their defense has not been elite out in Washington since he's been there. And so most likely he'll find somebody relatively high profile, proven defensive coordinator to come in there and run the defense. But they're going to go down a little bit. There's no way around that, you'd think.
Yeah.
But because a lot of kids went to Alabama because of Nick Saban ultimately, and he's not there anymore. So
Well, and one more thing before we move on, Mike, do you want to be the guy that follows Nick Saban? I mean, that's a risk that DeBoer is taking as a college coach.
Doesn't always work out. Expectations are through the roof, and they're all going to expect Nick Saban results from him right away. And if for the first 1 or 2 or 3 years that doesn't work out like that, he will be gone.
Yep. Another big coaching change, Mike, at the pro level, if you will. Jared Mayo was hired as the Patriots coach. He is 37 years old. He now becomes the youngest coach in the NFL. He takes that distinction from Sean McVay. He played linebacker for the Patriots from 2008 through 2015. He was the linebackers coach under Belichick from 2019 to the present. The Patriots were able to immediately hire him because they established, as you were kind of talking about there in regards to Alabama, they established a secession plan in the contract extension that he signed last offseason, so they didn't have to go through all of those other protocols that are normally expected when the NFL hires a coach. But it seemed like an amicable divorce between Belichick and the Patriots.
I agree.
And it seems like they got who they wanted. What are your opinions in regards to that hire?
Several thoughts came to my mind as soon as that happened. Number one, I think they too had an idea as to who they were going to plug in the event that something like this happened. Most likely he was handpicked, if you want to call it that, by Belichick himself. I wonder what's going to happen to Belichick's 2 sons who worked for him and are coaches on the team, and I wonder if there isn't a deal to keep them on staff and employed and moving forward, even though he's not going to be there. I suspect that they will be retained. But, that's going to be another interesting situation. But having said that, Belichick's leaving on the downside, right?
Great point.
They've had some bad seasons.
Great point.
Right? And, it's a little bit easier, I think, for the fans and everybody to kind of accept that maybe it was time for Belichick to step away because of the recent woes. And we'll see what Jared Mayo can do. I mean, he's not much older than some of the players, a couple of players on his team, right? So, but yeah, how about that? Bill Belichick, Nick Saban, and I don't know if you're going to talk about it or mention it, but Pete Carroll.
Yeah, we were going to talk about
all
that.
71, 72 years old, all at the same time. And but that's a big change for New England. Belichick was there, 24 years, I think?
Yeah, let's see.
I think something like that.
Yeah, 23 years maybe?
And one of
24.
yeah,
24
one
seasons.
of,
with
if
the
not
Patriots.
the GOAT in terms of the all-time NFL coaches. He's a little bit behind Don Shula in terms of overall wins, and I think he wants that record. But certainly in terms of Super Bowl titles, he's number one. And I think I don't think he's ready to step away.
I don't either. No.
He's gonna coach again.
I agree.
And just a matter of where, and hopefully, or most likely, right away, because there's like 7 or 8 openings right there. I mean, there's a ton of openings in the NFL. So let's see who hires him and brings him in, and see if he can recreate some of that Tom Brady magic at his next position.
Yeah, 24 seasons with the Patriots, 2000 through 2023, 333 and 178 overall record. He has 6 Super Bowl titles with the Patriots, 8 overall. And just one more point, you kind of veered into it a little bit, but Jared Mayo, he does take over for a legend, but it's a little bit different than the Kalen DeBoer situation, because I think Mayo is kind of taking over in a rebuilding situation. It's not like the Patriots just won the Super Bowl.
Well,
he's kind of coming in.
That, and he's a New York or New England / Belichick guy. They drafted him in the first round. He eventually was an all-pro linebacker, played for Belichick. So he's a New England Patriot, right? He's in-house. He played there. He's been coaching there forever. He's seen, he knows the organization. He knows what the Patriot way is there. And that's a little bit different of a situation than a guy coming in that's Alabama from Washington, right?
Yeah.
Completely on the outside looking in until he's brought on board. And two totally different situations, although both 71-year-olds, 72-year-olds are on their way up, but kind of going in different directions.
Yeah. You mentioned it a couple of moments ago, Mike. There are 5 candidates that have emerged for the Seahawks head coaching job. And, again, this is just fodder by the media. But Dan Quinn, Cowboys defensive coordinator. Kalen DeBoer was also mentioned, but, of course, he's going to Alabama. Mike Vrabel, the Fire's Titan head coach. Mike McDonald, who is the Ravens defensive coordinator. And this one kind of surprised me, Mike, as I was kind of reading through the information in regards to this coaching position. But Mike McCarthy is also mentioned. He's the current Cowboys head coach.
Yeah, there has been chatter that if they don't at least win 1, if not 2 games, and get to the NFC Championship game, that he could be done in Dallas. And again, a proven winner. I don't know how
Jerry Jones has a itchy finger.
Those are and at his age, you got a lot of things that itch. but that would not be shocking if that happened. But honest to God, I mean, here we are in Dayton, Ohio, and who cares what happens in Seattle? You know what I'm saying? How many times have you seen Seattle play in your life?
Just on TV against the Bengals.
I mean, yeah, when they played the Bengals on TV. Yeah. So, thinking out loud here,
made the Super Bowl.
I could probably name one player out there, but anyways, yeah, it's an elite job, obviously, an NFL head coach. But wouldn't be surprised if any of those guys latch on out there. They're all qualified candidates, and really the NFL is kind of an old boys network in terms of the coaches. They just kind of recycle their way through the system, much like the NBA is, and I'm sure whoever gets hired out there is going to have some serious experience and be more than qualified for that job.
Do you think Bill Belichick might be interested in that
That's
one?
an
Although
interesting
I would be surprised if the Seahawks would go with an older coach.
Well, they're keeping Carroll on staff.
Yes, they are.
In some kind of a role. So I can't imagine if they had to work together on a regular basis, him and Belichick doing that. But anything's possible, man. Nothing surprises me anymore.
Mike, I want to dive into now maybe a little bit of discussion on Notre Dame and Ohio State, but Notre Dame has been very active in the off-season recruiting / portal signees. They, of course, won the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. That still gets you just really excited, the Tony the Tiger.
The Cereal Bowl.
That's right. They dominated Oregon State 40-8. Oregon State, of course, and Notre Dame both playing without some of their starters who opted out. But Notre Dame did what they had to do, Mike. That was a game that, in the long term, I guess, doesn't really matter a whole lot. But it gives you a good, positive feeling when you head in to the off-season, off-season workouts, and then when spring ball starts. But a good win for Notre Dame. Notre Dame had some coaching changes. We talked a little bit about that. Chancey Stuckey out as wide receivers coach. Notre Dame hired Chris Brown from Wisconsin. He also coached at Cincinnati with Freeman when they were both there under Fickell. And I think at our last show we talked about Notre Dame possibly. It was rumored that they might hire Mike Denbrock. He was the offensive coordinator at LSU. That did happen. They have hired Mike Denbrock. He's been coaching since 1986. He started at Grand Valley State, which was his alma mater. He's coached offensive line, tight ends, wide receivers, QBs, and linebackers. And ironically, this will be his third stint at Notre Dame. He was at Notre Dame from 2002 through 2004 under Willingham, and was also at Notre Dame from 2010 through 2016 under Kelly. He also then he went to Cincinnati from 2017 to 2021, which is that period of time when he coached with Marcus Freeman. But then Coach Kelly hired him to go to LSU, and he was offensive coordinator at LSU the last 2 years. And this season, 2023, LSU led the nation in scoring with a 46.4-point average. So I think it's a home run hire for Marcus Freeman, and it seems like, at least to me as a fan, I'm obviously biased, but it seems like Marcus Freeman has made some impressive moves here at the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we talked about this 2 weekends ago when I was sitting in a car in a parking lot in Michigan on a day like this. Yeah, they've made all the right moves. Not that Marcus Freeman's on the hot seat, but
No, not yet.
No, not yet. But they've made really good moves, not just in terms of the players they've been able to pick up, both recruiting and through the portal, but the coaching changes that they made that you just mentioned. And so I haven't looked at even if they've come out. I know odds to win the national championship next year have come out already, but I don't know where Notre Dame is on that list. But I gotta believe that preseason they're a top 10 team.
It feels different, and I know that sounds strange, but, obviously I've followed the program all my life. And, you always feel positive and hopeful, but I can't explain it. I don't know what it is, but it's something internal, but it feels different right now, what he's doing. And I hope that the feeling comes to fruition, but I just feel like Notre Dame is right there. And you talked a little bit about the portal commitments, but I think they've hit the portal hard, and they've shored up some holes. They, of course, got Riley Leonard, QB out of Duke. They also got R.J. Oben, a defensive lineman out of Duke, Jordan Clark, a cornerback from ASU, Chris Mitchell, a very good wide receiver out of Florida International University, and Bo Collins, another wide receiver out of Clemson, who – that one, I think, is one of the best moves that they made. And you and I texted a little bit, I think, on this one, but they got Jaden Harrison. He's a wide receiver out of Marshall, but he was also an All-American kick returner, and that was kind of interesting. But, boy, all facets of the game you got to pay attention to, and certainly getting a pickup like that was big.
Yeah, interesting. Ohio State picked up a tight end from Marshall. They must have had a good team and a good season this year, but I don't even have any idea what they've done. But yeah, that's all good news. I totally agree with you on paper. They've made all the right moves, and those guys need to perform to their potential. And college football is better when Notre Dame is good, and I hope next year that they're good, and you would have to expect right now that they're, you don't want to call anybody a lock, but they're certainly a favorite to finish in the top 12.
Certainly hope so. Notable players returning: Riley Mills, defensive lineman; Howard Cross III, who was a second-team All-American, a defensive lineman. They'll have Jack Kaiser again at linebacker, and Xavier Watts, this one's huge, decided to stay for another year. He was a consensus All-American and the Bronco Nagurski Award winner. So right now, Notre Dame's, this, of course, could change, especially as you get more into next season and at signing day. But right now, Notre Dame has the number one ranked recruiting class for the 2025 class. Mike, spring practice begins March 16th and culminates with the spring game on April the 15th for Notre Dame, so I'm already looking forward to spring practice.
It's going to be here relatively quickly, and there's a portal window in the spring.
Yeah, there is.
So a lot to talk about, even when you wouldn't think there is once spring football rolls around.
And, Mike, I thought you could also give us an update on Ohio State. Ohio State's certainly active as well here in the offseason. They ended on a bad note, but I mentioned this to you a couple of weeks ago on our last show, but that game against Missouri was absolutely horrible.
Yep.
But besides Ohio State's defense, which I thought was still very good in that game, Ohio State was Ohio State in name only in that game.
Yeah, but they're moving forward. They've made some big portal deals, have one of the top 3 recruiting classes coming in. And here's the good news. They're keeping a lot of their guys. They're returning 7 starters from that defense. Guys that have decided to come back and play.
That's good for them.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Some big names that have decided to come back to play for them next year. And so 7 starters coming back from one of the nation's best defenses. They've added a quarterback who's got tremendous potential. Will Howard will be a 5th-year senior out of Kansas State. Big, 6'5", 225-pound quarterback who can really throw it, but also a threat to run the ball. They got one of, if not the best, running back in the SEC out of Ole Miss, a guy by the name of Quinshon Judkins. He's had a couple 1,000-yard rushing seasons now back-to-back, and he's leaving Ole Miss to come to Ohio State, who's keeping Travion Henderson. So two of the best running backs in the country are going to be in Ohio State's backfield.
Yeah, they're going to be loaded there.
Yep, and they've added Alabama offensive lineman Seth McLaughlin, the center, who struggled a little bit in their game against Michigan, but they're talking about moving him to guard, so he wouldn't have to snap the ball. But he's a pro prospect. Those are the three big names they've gotten out of the portal. There are others, but between that, the guys that they're keeping, and their recruiting class, they don't rebuild at Ohio State. They just reload, and they're reloading again this coming season.
Yeah, no, I was going to ask you, are there any you talked about filling some holes, but are there any holes that you think that they have not filled, either through the recruiting class or the portal?
I think they might still have a question or two on their offensive line, but obviously they're set at quarterback. Emeka Ubeka is one of the best wide receivers in the country, and he was supposedly going to be leaving for the NFL, but has decided to stay back. So they're going to be really good in the wide receiver room again this year, but maybe a little bit of a question mark with the offensive line. We'll see. Those guys develop. They develop. They don't necessarily just come in off the street and are really good. So, but as important as that, Tim, are some coaching changes they've made. Per my recommendation from 2 Saturdays ago, they released the special teams coach. Don't know what they're going to do there. They're bringing in a legit, proven offensive coordinator that Ryan Day said is going to be given a significant amount of accountability and responsibility. So all arrows are up for Ohio State. I think they're right now, before Nick Saban left, the three betting favorites to win the national championship next year were Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State. And Ohio State's done nothing to cause that to be not legitimate.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but this will be the third season for Jim Knowles as defensive coordinator, and I think he's already proved that his system is clicking very well there at Ohio State.
Evidently he's not leaving, so that would probably already have happened. So he's a 6-star recruit for Ryan Day. He's using his COVID year, but 7 starters back on that defense. Given who they had on the bench last year, their depth defensively.
Always have a good defense.
Hopefully C.J. Hicks from Alder steps in there and plays a lot next season and has a big year. But with 7 guys coming back, you can't ask for much more than that these days.
Mike, let's go ahead and jump into pro football here. The regular season, of course, has ended. The playoffs start today and tomorrow. They'll go through the wild card round. The Bengals are done. The Browns are not. The Browns,
that is correct,
have had a very impressive season.
One more day.
Wild card games, Mike. The Browns are at the Texans.
Thank God they're not in
today
Kansas City.
At 4:30.
Yeah.
And then the Dolphins at the Chiefs. That's tonight at 8 o'clock.
Minus 8 degrees.
Tomorrow, the Steelers are at the Bills at 1 o'clock.
Going to be cold there.
Packers at Cowboys. Boy, if that one was opposite, that might be exciting. That's Sunday at 4:30. Tomorrow at 4:30. Rams at Lions tomorrow at 8 o'clock. That's the night game. And then the Eagles at Tampa Bay. I thought this was interesting. I don't remember them ever doing this unless it's just not in my memory bank here. But the Eagles are at Tampa Bay on Monday. Did they ever do a playoff game on Monday?
They might have. I don't know. They got enough games the first weekend to spread them out and be able to do that. But how about that? The Eagles are going on the road all season. One of the best.
You thought they were one of the best, and struggled at the end.
The NFL needs to change this format, though, because the Eagles have a better record by far than Tampa Bay. Tampa, they finished 9-8. They made the playoffs.
That is a strange loophole there.
They need to do what the NBA does. The NBA got away from. They still have division winners. The NBA does, but their playoff standings are ranked across the whole conference, top to bottom, based on your one-loss record. And if that were the case, the Browns would be hosting this weekend and not going on the road. they're the 5th seed with 11 wins. That doesn't make any sense, right? So anyway, it is what it is, and the story for the weekend, I think, and it's going to be the weather in those places you talked about, those north cities, Kansas City, Buffalo. They're talking about it being -8 degrees tonight in Kansas City. Somebody sent me a text the other day, said they're giving tickets away out there. Nobody's going to want to go.
Wow,
Poor Joe Tooney.
that'll be fun to watch, and I'm glad I'll be inside watching it.
Yeah, and going to be cold and snowy. They're expecting a foot of snow in Buffalo.
I love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it.
Well, it's it's why they make such a big deal of being able to play defense and run the ball, because you get environments like that. And the Dolphins, I mean, can you imagine? Because I've done this. I've lived in South Florida and came home during the winter, and froze my butt off because I wasn't ready for it or used to it. The Dolphins have been in subtropical temperatures for however long they've all been down there, and they're going to go to -8 tomorrow.
It
or
absolutely
tonight.
affects your body. I mean,
They're going to. I just can't imagine
No.
the Dolphins being able. And they're such a finesse, quote unquote, kind of a finesse team, anyways.
absolutely.
So I don't give them much of a chance in that weather out there. I don't give them a snowball's chance in hell.
Okay. I'm kind of with you on that one. The Ravens and the 49ers, of course, get the bye in the first round, but all the playoffs are set, and we will know where we are going forward after Monday night.
By the way,
But,
you know who is the only team to have beaten the Ravens and the 49ers?
the Bengals,
The Browns.
the Browns.
Browns beat both of them. Bengals did not beat the Ravens.
That's true. Yeah.
Browns beat both the Ravens and the 49ers this year. How's that?
I'm not a fan, but I have been impressed with the Browns all season long. Not only the team, but the way the organization handled all of those injuries. It's
insane.
impressive.
It's crazy.
that they are where they are with everything that they've gone through.
Yeah, I'd like to see them get past this game and play one more, and then if they lose to Baltimore, who I haven't even looked past this weekend and where they're going to go to have to play if they do win.
Joe Flacco.
Joe Flacco, baby, he and Tom Brady have won the most playoff games on the road as a quarterback in history, and so
They can beat the Texans.
Here he is going on the road.
Well, I love it. Mike, before we kind of exit pro football here, just wanted to go over with you real quick about the Bengals and the Browns. The Bengals, of course, season is over. I wanted to ask you what you think their top needs are in the draft. They need to get Joe Burrow healthy, and who do they need to sign, and who will they sign? And by that I mean, they've got T. Higgins and the other wide receiver's name
Boyd.
is Boyd.
Boyd.
I think they're going to lose Boyd.
They're going to lose one of them. And it'd be nice if they can keep T. Higgins, but he's going to ask for a lot of money. I don't know their salary cap situation, but first of all, I would start with re-signing and putting Jake Browning under contract, because
He's an awful nice
just mentioned
insurance policy.
Yeah, you just mentioned Joe Burrow's health. Well, he's been hurt a significant part of 2 of the last 4 seasons, and Jake Browning came in there and gave them a chance. And he's not under contract past. Plus his wife. Did you see her? They need to keep her on board. But anyway,
my goodness.
I would seriously consider making sure that I don't know how much it's going to cost, and he's probably going to want to go someplace where
He wants to
He
start.
wants a chance to play.
Yeah.
But if you throw enough money at him, I mean, we all know now how really important it is to have a backup quarterback or two if you
Without a doubt.
want to keep things rolling. So the first thing I would do was try to get Browning back in the fold because he's proven the Bengals can win with him at quarterback.
I think they're going to be, if I heard this correctly, I think they're going to have the 18th pick in the draft come, I think they do that in April.
Yeah. I feel like they need some defensive backup,
yeah.
especially at safety.
I would always draft defense because I think you can get, linemen and offensive players, running backs through free agency. But I totally agree with you. I think that the Bengals need to draft defense.
Yeah, that probably was one of their biggest misses this past season. There are two really good safeties left, and they really had trouble kind of filling in for them. And they're probably just going to need some depth on a defensive line, maybe an offensive lineman.
Absolutely.
They love to draft wide receivers, and they do a really good job at it. If they lose one of those two you just mentioned, they might have to draft a high-level wide receiver, but they'll be back. But it all revolves around Joe Burrow and him staying healthy, and
They've got to protect
It's
him.
amazing to me if you had told me, and this is the NFL in a nutshell, if you had told me before the season started 3 of the 4 AFC North teams to make the playoffs, I would have bet a house payment that the Bengals would have been one of the teams, and here they aren't. I mean, it's amazing.
And they all had
Winning records.
I don't know if that's
incredible. I don't know if that's ever happened before. It truly is the best.
It was the first time.
Truly is the best division in football, the most competitive, and maybe the best in terms of the talent they had on those teams this season.
And of course, Mike, the Browns are still playing, but I would like to get your playoff prediction for today for the Browns. You kind of veered into it a little bit, but what are their keys to victory? And Mike, what are their needs in the offseason, and where do you think they will go in the draft?
Yeah, they don't they don't have a ton of high level picks, and they've traded several of them away to get Deshaun Watson. That's a whole nother topic. But, I think today they just can't turn it over. Flacco, everybody talks about how much success they've had and their one-loss record and the comeback wins, but he's thrown a ton of interceptions this season, believe it or not. In fact, I think he's thrown more interceptions than several of the quarterbacks that have played all season. So they can't turn it over today or this afternoon down in Texas. They've got to take care of the ball. He can't be just like legit out there gunslinging the ball all over the damn place. He needs to take care of it. Be smart. Don't turn it over. I think if they don't turn it over. So here's an interesting stat about today's game. The Texans, I think, lead the league in the least amount of turnovers and not turning it over. The Browns defense leads the league in takeaways. So something between those two.
Something's got to give.
Something's got to give between those two stats today. And if the Browns don't turn it over, and their defense is obviously very good, and I bet you Jim Schwartz, the Browns defensive coordinator, has something cooked up for C.J. Stroud that he hasn't seen all season. The Browns play a lot of man-to-man defense on wide receivers with their DBs, and C.J. Stroud statistically has not had great success against man-to-man defenses. He's been really good against zones, but not as good against teams that play a lot of man-to-man, and so maybe that makes the difference at the end of the day. But just don't turn it over, and obviously not let him throw the ball all over the place. I think those are the keys. And what I'm really afraid of, Tim, is that the game's going to boil down to a big kick or two somewhere, and this is another thing, they're using a kicker that didn't start the season with them because Dustin Hopkins got hurt, and
no position on the Browns team was not affected by injuries.
Correct, 100% correct. And I given my history and my fandom with the Cleveland Browns and everybody else that follows them, we kind of want to tend towards thinking the negative, and I'm just afraid that we're going to be put in a position tonight where the field goal kicker or the kicker has to make a difference, and we got a guy that has only been with the team for 3 weeks. He came in, but he's done a good job statistically. He wasn't terrible when he was in the league. He's done a good job since he's come back with Cleveland. I think he's missed one PAT, but he doesn't have the leg and the consistency from range that Dustin Hopkins had, and I'm telling you, man, having a good kicker is such a big difference maker, and hopefully it doesn't come back to bite him down there tonight.
Well, it really is, and you hope it doesn't come down to that point, but especially when it's going to be that cold, and that. Or actually, they're down in Texas.
Yeah, it'll be warm there. But,
I was thinking that.
But speaking of the devil, the kicking game is going to be really big in those cold weather places.
It's going to be like kicking a rock.
Yeah, frozen rock.
So, Mike, before we head into yes, no, maybe, just wanted to let you know that you absolutely smoked me this season on our picks as far as the pros. You finished, in college, I should say. College, you were the obvious winner, 32-19. I was 24-27. So you absolutely smoked me in the college picks.
Wow.
And I think the opposite was true. I smoked you in the pro.
Whoa.
I had a 43-22.
That's impressive.
Season, and you were 28-37.
43-22. That's really impressive.
It was a push. However, I still owe you a breakfast, lunch, whatever here at My Favorite Muffin
Yep.
because Ohio State defeated Notre Dame earlier this season.
That's true, and
Much to my chagrin.
and we will get that done here sooner or later. Yeah, that's fun doing those picks, and I wish I had kind of followed my my picks on my betting app. I would have won some money this year.
You would have been a big winner in the college ranks.
Had I stayed away from the pros.
So, Mike, before we wrap up the show, I kind of want to go into the segment that I call Yes, No, Maybe. I make a statement, and then you and I determine whether or not we agree, disagree, or maybe agree or disagree. So let's go ahead and dive right into that. First statement, Nick Saban, with his retirement from Alabama, has coached his last college football game.
Yes, that's my thought. I don't think he's going to go anywhere else. Even you could add pro to that if you wanted to. I don't think he's going to be coaching anywhere. Again, he's 72. His wife has probably said enough is enough. He'll find some other things to do to keep him busy, and absolutely no is my answer to that one.
I agree. I don't think he's going to coach again in college or in the pro ranks. I know that there was information that came out that he just bought a house down in Florida. I think they're done. I think he's ready to call it quits and just enjoy the rest of his life.
He'll move out of Tuscaloosa, and like you said, he likes to golf. He likes to get out on the lake, so he's done. He'll be doing that kind of stuff. And as much as I ended up liking him and respecting him and what he did at Alabama, I say good riddance.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly every college team probably went, yes.
Yes. In a respectful way, I say good riddance.
Yeah. All right, second statement, Mike. Michigan will have all of their wins vacated, including the national championship, from the record books for the 2023 football season.
And I don't think so. Not all of them. I think it's highly likely that they have some of them, some of their wins vacated. But once the news broke and they kind of got caught with their hands in the cookie jar a little bit, most likely they quit doing what they were doing. I'm sure they did. And then they were mostly having to do it the old-fashioned way or the honest way, right? And they won. So there might be some, but not all. I don't think all of them will be. And I don't think the national championship will be vacated. I think they'll be forced to forfeit some games, and they'll put an asterisk next to the record. But I say no to that.
I say no too. I think it's all of.
Well, I can't wait to find out what they're going to do. How much longer is it going to take?
I think they're going to get a slap on the wrist. I think it's too late. They've already won the national championship. They're not going to take that away from them. I mean,
even in the past when they have done that kind of a thing to teams, everybody knows they won. So it's really kind of a joke. But I'm anxious to hear what their findings are. That thing came and went as fast. I mean, it was hot news for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, and then all of a sudden it went away.
Yeah, it disappeared.
So I guess all the information came out that was going to come out, but I want to find. I'm interested in, really anxious in hearing the final outcome, not necessarily from a punitive perspective, but what exactly happened, when, and how.
Yeah, and there certainly has to be some bullet points after all this. Some regulations or some rules that you have to do going forward. I mean, something has to come out of it.
He says they're innocent, but he also accepted his suspension.
Yeah.
I mean, so, he's really kind of talking out of both sides of his mouth. You don't just kind of like plead no contest when you're really innocent. So, and that's what he did, right? And so there's another guy. I say good riddance if he ends up leaving, which I think he will. But to answer your question, they will not be forced to vacate all their wins at the national championship.
You kind of answered this one already, but I'll get your feelings again. Bill Belichick will be a head coach again in the NFL.
Yes. I don't think there's any question about it.
I totally agree on that.
He said it. I mean, he said he wants to keep coaching. He's 15 wins away from the all-time record that Don Shula holds for career wins, and he wants that.
I think with a fresh start, I think he'll be very successful again.
Should be able to get that in 2 years.
Yeah, easily.
And, he's not slowing down. I mean, he's 72 or 71, but he's not slowing down in it. So I think where will he end up? Who knows? But he's not done coaching.
Yeah, agreed. Mike, I got a funny one here.
Good, let's do it.
Tim Kernan,
Oh, boy.
your co-host,
Yes. Uh-oh.
has met Sylvester Stallone, a.k.a. Rambo.
That's just too bizarre to not be true. So, yes, I'm going to say you did.
I did. I met him, Mike, in my previous life. I was an assistant golf pro, and
Right.
at least an aspiring one at that time. I worked at a place called Lagorce Country Club down in Miami Beach.
Really?
And Sylvester.
What year was this?
Oh boy, 1997.
I was gone by then. I lived down there from 82 to 88 in Florida, in Fort Lauderdale. I
Yeah.
worked down there, but I used
That
to
was a
work in
half hour
Miami.
away.
Used to work in Miami, and I used to go down and visit my cousin down there all the time. So, wow, did not know that. Did he come into golf?
He came into golf. I don't know if you've heard about him. He was very nice, but he was one of those people who never really made eye contact with you.
Really?
No. And I did talk to him at the time. You know, I love Rambo. I
Well,
love
the Rocky movies weren't bad.
Yeah, I love the Rambo movies.
Yeah.
But at that time,
First
he had
one, but-
made 3 Rambos, and now I think there's 5 total.
Oh, boy.
But I asked him, I said, "Are you ever going to do a Rambo again?" And he said, "It's funny that you mentioned that, because I am going to do another one." So
Yeah, well, he looked at the...
And he did.
Looked away. So how tall is he?
he is probably about an inch taller than me.
I
if you
didn't
believe.
think he was very
not
tall.
very tall
Yeah,
at
I
all.
didn't think he was. but,
And if anybody who knows me knows that I'm not exactly a big human being. But
well, if you were on any of these basketball teams we've seen the rosters of lately, you'd be about 6'2", I think.
I know I was as tall as the 2 guards from Baden last night.
And they were 6 foot, I think, so, for the roster.
I thought you might be interested, though, Mike. Other kind of famous people that were members at Lagorce Country Club.
yeah.
Eddie Arcuro, who was a jockey.
Absolutely. Hotbed of thoroughbred racing down there in Miami. I went to both multiple times, to Calder,
Calder was right
and
there.
to Hialeah. I went
Yep.
there multiple times and saw the Flamingo Stakes when I lived down there. So that's a very popular deal down there in South Florida.
I also got to meet Joe DiMaggio. Joe DiMaggio,
Wow.
he used to call me the pro.
He obviously lived down there in his retirement.
He lived down there. He was getting old at that point. He
Yeah.
was a little slunched over.
Yeah.
Also a pretty private guy, but I think he and I got along so well, Mike, and because I never really treated him like the celebrity he was, and I don't mean that I didn't respect him. I respected him, but I didn't ask him for an autograph.
He seems like
I
the kind of guy that would appreciate that. Now, did you give any of these guys lessons?
no,
just talk to him.
he was kind of slunched over, but I'll tell you what, he could still rip it.
Could he?
Man, he could still,
Awesome.
and he was, probably in his maybe 80s at that point,
Really?
late 70s, 80s. I can't remember the time, as far as how old he
Yeah,
was.
yeah, probably
But a really
80s.
nice guy. Robert Gomez was a PGA
Yep.
pro.
Yep.
He would show up there once in a while.
Yep.
Raymond Floyd, he actually redesigned the course.
And won the PGA at the NCR Country Club in 1969.
Yes, he did. Jim McLean. I don't know if you know him, but he's a golf instructor.
Sounds familiar.
Worked with Nick Faldo. Also, let's see. He had plenty of other pros. Worked with a lot of female professional golfers, but I'd see him there. And Sandy Aaron.
Absolutely.
He was son of Tommy Aaron.
Yep.
He would play there quite often. So
Yep.
it was kind of a neat experience, but I thought you would enjoy that question.
Everybody plays golf, and if you can get into a relatively kind of a nice country club kind of environment, especially down in Florida, you're going to meet your share of celebrities. A lot of the PGA golfers live down there year round, or as
absolutely.
much as they can, and you're going to run into celebrities. Miami Beach is full of them.
So, Mike, that's going to wrap the show up for today. I really enjoyed this. Again, I want to say a big thank you to Carrie and Ted Thompson for hosting us today and allowing us to do the show here at the My Favorite Muffin.
Do you know the Muffin Man, the
Yeah.
Muffin Man, the Muffin?
You and I think, would have we may not have finished the show. We would have been frozen stiff.
Well, that, and it's a good thing he put us as far away from the food as possible, because I'd have been eating muffins the
Yeah.
whole time. But Yeah, we haven't been cold in the Gamecast Radio Sports Talk studio today, and hopefully next Saturday it's at least warm enough to get back in there.
Absolutely. Well, folks, that's going to wrap the show up for today. Thanks again for joining us for Gamecast Radio Sports Talk. Mike, good luck today in the flying to the hoop, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be fun. Flying to the hoop, a big deal, and it's going to be fun to talk about where we stand after this big weekend next Saturday when we do our podcast one more time.
Absolutely. Folks, have a great day. Enjoy the sports, and we'll see you next time on Gamecast Radio Sports Talk.
Have a great weekend, everybody.